Wow.
I guess we're being recorded.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joan Hollister, and it's my pleasure to introduce and then interview Ronnie Licata, who is the Director of Dining Services. Thank you. Now, as residents here, we all have the experience of going into the dining room, so we know how we feel personally there, or ordering room service. But I don't think any of us totally understand the breadth of Ronnie's responsibilities. And so we're hoping to give you a taste of that this afternoon. I don't think half an hour is really enough time, but you'll become somewhat more familiar with everything she does and what she has responsibility for. And I thought we might start out with asking Ronnie to explain something about how food service function here at Woodland Pond is organized. Is that okay with you if we start with that?
Sure. I'm assuming you're referring to the relationship with Sodexo and my responsibility here.
Yeah.
So, as some of you know, or some of you might not know, I am employed by Sodexo. Woodland Pond contracts Sodexo to manage the food. What that generally looks like is, as a management company, they hire the managers to come in and organize and manage the food service. So what that generally means is we will order food. Sodexo pays for everything up front. And then at the end, there's a bill that is submitted to Woodland Pond to kind of reimburse those costs. There's been some misconceptions as to what Sodexo does. As an example, I recently had somebody ask, the chicken pot pie, does Sodexo make that off-site? So the answer is no. What we do is we buy a pie shell, we buy diced chicken, we make a gravy, we cook vegetables, and we make the pot pie. Sodexo is here to manage and supply support for me and my team. We get our recipes from them. We get support from them from a marketing perspective. I can reach out to them for suggestions on, next steps for, like, the pub, as an example. I reached out to my district manager and said, hey, we're looking at doing this. Do we have anything that Sodexo does? And that's kind of what Sodexo does. Besides paying me my salary and hiring me, they are just here for support. I manage two bosses, really. I kind of talked to Joan about that. I have my Sodexo bosses that I have to report to and their budget. And then I have Michelle and Woodland Pond. So my job is pretty complex in the fact that I really kind of manage, or I am managed by two different people.
And then you manage people.
I do. So for me, I have 4 managers. I have the chef, executive chef Mike. He has 2 chef managers under him. Each one of them is split up. One primarily takes care of the health center. The other one primarily takes care of independent living. And then we have a dietitian. And her license actually puts her above me when it comes to the health center. She rules the roost. She has the license. I'm just the manager. So from a management perspective, those are the people that I manage. And then along with that are obviously all the wonderful folks that you guys see in the dining room. You don't see the cooks and the utility people, but then there's also the dietary aides that are over in the health center. They are all employed by Woodland Pond, but my job and my management team's job is to manage them.
How many people is that, give or take?
Pre-pandemic, we were well over 100. We are approximately 55 right now, but that number is interesting because pre-pandemic, I had a lot of people that might work 1 day a week or, 2 little shifts, but now most of my staff are here more often. So I can potentially run the business with less people more efficiently.
Do you still have some part-timers?
Absolutely. This facility runs on a lot of part-time staff.
And so the scheduling of all those people, is that up to you?
No, I actually have a scheduler. Her name is Jen, and she reports to me every morning, and she tells me what's going on. This is who's out. This is who's on vacation. This is where we have holes. I'm thinking of moving this one here. What do you think about that? That's her primary job. Her primary job is to put them in the schedule, make sure that they're punching in and out. They're working the amount of hours they're supposed to work, not over, not under.
And all those folks who you hire, which ones are paid by Woodland Pond and which ones are paid by Sodexo?
It's just the 5 of us that are paid by Sodexo. So myself, Mike Bukowski, Susan Kaufman, Eon, and we have a new gentleman who's starting on Sunday. His name is Jared.
And Susan's the dietitian?
She's the registered dietitian.
Is she a full-time employee?
Absolutely. She's primarily in the health center.
Oh, okay.
That more than 60% of her work is for the skilled nursing. However, if I have an independent living resident that either Mary Jo has come to me or they have personally come to me and said, hey, this has happened to me, I will contact her and say, can you spend 20 minutes with this resident and help them out a little bit? Someone in this room actually got to experience that. An hour.
Okay, so I knew there was a dietitian and that the dietitian had responsibility for analyzing the menus periodically, but I didn't realize she was full-time.
Yes, it's her job is much deeper than that. So how it affects independent living is when we make a cycle menu, she has to do a nutritional analysis on it. And it's not just a nutritional analysis for independent living, it's mainly for the health center, but because the menus are duplicated, it ends up being for the entire community. Her job is from wound care. If anybody has a wound, the dietitian is involved in that because there are specific nutrients that can be provided to help with wound care. If a resident is not eating, she will report to me, this person is not eating. The only thing we can find that they will eat is scrambled eggs. Can we provide scrambled eggs for them 3 days a week? And we talk about that. It's myself, it's Susan, and the chef, and we talk about how we can get this specific person the nutrients that they need. So her job is, and it's obviously a lot more than that. She's actually charting. She's meeting with Philip Mell. She's part of the clinical team over there. She's got a very important part.
But since she analyzes the menus, that makes it a lot more complicated for you whenever you want to make a change, right?
It does. And I'm using the sweet potato as an example because it's the hot topic in the community. I want to change the vegetables and starches, the sweet potato and broccoli, because I know you guys have had enough of it. And I intend to do so. But so the community understands what happens there is, there's 7 to 8 items a day times 7 days a week times 5-week cycle menu. Every single day's menu needs a new nutritional analysis for her to sign off on. And this is not just because she wants to do so. This is because when you guys hear us saying the Department of Health is here and the survey team is here, it's probably one of the first questions they ask. Where's your cycle menu and where's the signed off nutritional analysis? So it's very important. It's not just us not wanting to do something. There is reasons why we have to kind of follow policy on that.
So Can you give us a sense of what you do each day? As you arrive here, do you have a chance for your own cup of coffee or?
I have a cup of coffee before I come in. No, so my day is, yes, I do get a cup of coffee when I walk in the door as well. My day, I come in and the very first person I see is Mike, the chef. He's here, he's on the ground running. He will report to me immediately as far as this product had this issue, or we might not have enough of this. The tallies last night came in and I only thought we would do 50 lamb chops and we had 100 people order lamb, and we kind of talk about how to fix that. That's item number one. Then Susan comes in my door pretty soon after, and we talk about, she's already gone to morning report, which means she's sat with the charge nurse for the day. The nurses, they have a morning meeting to talk about what's going on in skilled nursing. So she'll come over and we'll kind of touch base on who, what, when, why, and where. And that leads into bringing Mike back into my office and saying, what can we do to fix these items? And at that point, it's probably, close to 10:30. Right now, I will, check in on the pub, see how they're doing, check in on emails, and, there's meetings. Before I know it, it's 3:00. And my focus at that point is sitting down with the wait staff, going over training. I mean, I'm training them every day. We're going over, new policies, new procedures. Through COVID, you guys all know everything is changing on a weekly basis. So I have to continue to communicate this to the wait staff. And then it's dinner time. In between that, there's lots of emails, there's ordering, there's the HR stuff that needs to be done, interviewing people, progressively counseling, promoting where I can find, there's promotions are needed. It's a little bit of everything. It's walking around the kitchen, seeing a carrot on the floor, telling the utility person to sweep the kitchen, noticing that the coffee mugs have, and I'm going into really fine details, but this is the little things that happen throughout the day. I'll walk through the kitchen, see the coffee mugs need to be cleaned, the floor needs to be polished, the gaskets and the doors need to be cleaned. Mike will say, these pieces of equipment need to be fixed. I call the maintenance person. It goes on and on. Kitchens are very complex animals. They really are. They're very complex. Does that give you a good idea what I do? And then I have to answer to Joan. She's, she calls me every day, and no, I'm just kidding.
Ronnie's talking about
Joan Kleinegris,
not Joan. So a lot of us think we have constructive suggestions. If I want to make a suggestion, how should I do that in order to have a chance of the suggestion actually having a positive impact?
Okay, so, and I really do mean when I say that whenever somebody brings something to me, I might not find a solution immediately, but there's this little file in my brain that I tuck these things away in. And as an example for when I'm going to redo the menus, it's not just about the broccoli and the sweet potatoes. It's all these other little things that I've heard over the month that I'm going to take into consideration when I fix the menu. So to answer your question, the number one place that is not the best place is in the middle of the dining room. The middle of the dining room is for your meal at that moment you need attention to, or everything is fantastic. I want to focus in the dining room on how I can make your experience better at that moment. If you're in the dining room and you remembered, oh, yesterday, I had this comment or suggestion on something I had yesterday, write it down, put it in the comment box, shoot me an email, call me, go to concierge, have them come get me outside. Um, it's kind of tough for me to handle a lot of that in the dining room, and that's where I get the majority of it. I do get the majority of the suggestions in the middle of the dining room, and I'm trying to run a dining room. I'm trying to get my staff to get food out. I'm trying to make sure that the kitchen is good. We're not running out of food. The food is hot. Um, so to answer the question, there's lots of ways to get in touch with me. Um, Email is the easiest for me, but I know not everybody is savvy to that. Because with an email, I can take the time, I can go talk to Mike, I can say, how can we fix this? The comment cards work as well, and in person. Okay.
So is there anything in particular that you would like us to know about your job?
Oh, boy. Um, how many people am I feeding? Somebody asked how many people I'm feeding. The health center, when we're fully staffed, when we're full census, is 300 meals a day because there's 100 people, 3 meals a day. There's actually more than that because there's some snacks that are provided and other refreshments throughout the day. And over here we're close to 200, 250 meals between room service and the pub and the dining room. So it's a couple hundred. Um, at one point, our max was about 800 to 900 meals a day. Census a little lower, so we're finding more people are probably cooking at home. So we've dropped a little bit of our meal counts through COVID. Um, I like what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. It can be a very challenging job, but I do like food service. It's the only thing I know. I went to the culinary when I was 19 years old. I graduated at 20, 22, and I dove right in. I dove right into food service. I cooked. I cooked for several years. I was given an opportunity to run a small cafeteria for AT&T in Manhattan, and I've just managed since then. I don't know that I want to cook again. I do like managing, and this is a very unique environment, I have to tell you. In all my years of working, this is the most unique environment I've been in.
One of the things that I've recently become more aware of is how you're constantly balancing the demands in independent living and the health center, and how they can impact each other in a way that most of us are totally unaware of.
Yeah, I think for a lot of independent living residents, and I don't know that it's for all, because there are a handful of people that have significant others over in the health center. I don't think people realize how much goes into what we do in the health center. Just the day in the life of chicken parm in the health center is made 4 different ways. It's chopped up for those that can no longer cut their food. It's whole, as you would see it in independent living for those that can still consume on a normal basis. It is ground up for those that might have some chewing issues, and it's pureed for others. So when you see 4 items on the menu over here, there's 4 items on the menu over in the health center made 8 different ways. So those 300 meals a day are made in a lot of different fashions. Broccoli also needs to be pureed and ground. And the sweet potatoes.
And do you take care of all of that in the main kitchen
We
here?
do. The main kitchen prepares, and I'll just continue on chicken parm. When we're making chicken parm and it's on room service and it's on the dinner menu and it's also in the health center, it's starting to be prepared at 8 a.m., maybe the breading and the frying for Dinner service, we don't cook it all the way. We chill it down. We save that until dinner service, finish cooking that off. For room service, it's cooked immediately. It's cooked all the way up. It's put in the refrigerator to cool down for packaging. And then it is divvied up for the 4 different types of consistencies for the health center and packaged and put into hot boxes that have to be held for the dietary aides to come over and grab it. So 1 chicken parm in our kitchen on the menu, if we're making, say 120 portions, 30 are not cooked all the way, 40 are cooked all the way and chilled, and the remainder are prepared in multiple different fashions for our health center. And that's 1 item. So that's 1 item. Yeah.
This is probably a good time for me to see whether those of you in the audience have questions, and I will try to remember to repeat them instead of bringing the microphone to you. Yes,
How
Betsy.
does the food get from the kitchen to the dining room, to the health center?
How does the food get from the kitchen to the health center?
So it gets put into the appropriate containers that will be needed for service. We have a little serving line in each one of our kitchens in the health center. And by the way, there's 3 kitchens. So not only did that chicken get made 4 different ways, it got split up into 3 different kitchens. Just to add. So it gets packaged up appropriately, it gets wrapped, it gets labeled, whether it's garden view, skilled, or assisted living. It gets put in a hot box. Dietary aides come over 30 minutes prior to service. So as an example, for lunch at 12, we have to serve by 12. They're in our kitchen at 11:30, taking the food, putting it in a transport box. It gets wheeled underground to the health center. It gets put in a serving station. And then the dietary aides then have to look at each individual resident's ticket and prepare a plate based on their ticket. So the complexity of that is if someone is on the ground chicken, ground foods, they might also be on a thickened liquid, or the next person might be on ground foods, but on regular liquid. So every single tray it's very individualized, and it's based on a very specific criteria on the ticket, which is also provided by our dietitian. The dietitian tells us if someone needs a built-up utensil, and for those that don't know what that is, not just regular thin utensil. It has styrofoam on the outside for those that might have a hard time to grip a utensil. We have what are called lip plates, so they can kind of shovel the food and hit the edge of a plate to allow them to still have the independence of feeding themselves. But all of that information is on those tickets. I think I answered your question, Betsy, right? Okay.
Do they actually do cooking in any of those kitchens in the health center?
No, everything is, with the exception of grilled cheese. We have little George Foreman grills. Everything is prepared in independent living. The grilled cheeses we're making over there, because if you can imagine eating one that's been cooked an hour ago, it's not the most pleasant experience. So we bought some little George Foreman grills, and they make them over there for them.
George?
You must have a lot of food left over. Can you give us an idea of how much? Does it go to compost, or are you able to provide it to Meals on Wheels or other organizations?
How much food is left over and what do you do with it?
Okay, so that depends on each location. Garden View, we tend to have a lot of leftover because we have to provide pretty much 2 meals per person because their complex, their decision-making is at the moment. It's not today for tomorrow, theirs is at the moment. So we tend to have a decent amount left over in Garden View. Skilled and assisted living, we don't have much because we tally. And room service, there's pretty much nothing left over. Dinner service, what ends up being left over at dinner service becomes the wait staff's meal. Nothing goes to a Meals on Wheels, as you mentioned, everything goes to compost. Unless the random item the chef decides, like, I just made this, I'm going to save it, and maybe we can make a soup out of it. But that's very random, not that often. That doesn't happen often.
Carl?
Talk to us a little bit about the economics. Does the food money that we pay for our meals cover our meals? And is this period of tight money causing you any problems?
Okay, there are basically two parts to the question. Does the $300 a month that independent living folks pay towards the meals, does that cover the meal cost? And the other was, do you have a much tighter budget because of the pandemic overall?
So I don't really look at what the $300, what happens is on an annual basis, I'm given a budget, and that's how I manage my dining room. Michelle has spoken about this on multiple occasions, that although each department has its own budget, it's a lump facility. So it's kind of hard for me to say that your $300 is covering the cost of my operation. It's a bigger, kind of a bigger picture when you look at the organization. It's really just based on a budget. That's, so hopefully I answered that piece of it. And what was the second part?
Overall, are
Yeah.
you having to pay a lot more attention to costs given the pandemic?
So, running our dining room is a little bit less cost effective. The to-goes, the room service, is a lot easier for us to manage with zero waste. Running the dining room, we end up having a little bit more waste. So throughout the pandemic, our numbers have changed. They've changed throughout the pandemic. It depends on if we're dining room, if we're full service, but it's not a lot. I mean, it's 10%. It's not a big number. So, however, the pandemic has affected, which any of you that have gone grocery shopping, the cost of food is outrageous. So, I don't feel strap hung by anything. I have a budget, and if I go over it, it's just a simple conversation with Michelle as to why, and, are we going to make it up next month, kind of thing. So.
On that theme, how do you determine what price to charge for each of the entrees in independent
That's a really good question. So, I didn't really change the pricing when I came here. I kind of was grandfathered into a set of pricing. Periodically, we'll look at items and say, look, dessert's costing us a lot more than what we're charging, so let's charge 50 cents more. Ice cream, as an example, has gone up a little bit, so we increased that price. We know scallops have doubled in price, so we took a different approach on that. Instead of increasing the price, we decided we were going to give, and as simple as this sounds, one less scallop a person. And that is the way that we were able to offset that, right? But, and the funny thing is, on the scallops, is people noticed it, but many people said it's a proper serving. It's good for us. We like the amount of food that's on the plate. So.
Well, 2 days ago, it was 5 scallops per person. And then last night, it was only 4. Did that price increase
No,
between
those are
Tuesday and Wednesday?
Those are different size scallops. We had a little problem getting the big jumbo scallops, so we got smaller ones. Yeah. Yeah, it's, we have to, you can't always get the same size of things. So when you get something a little smaller, you give more of it. So, to kind of answer the question on pricing, Mike will sit down and say, look, scallops have skyrocketed. How do you want to handle this? And if we're going to increase the price, I most likely will go to Michelle and say, this is what we're thinking. And, we talk through it, and it's never an across the board price increase. It's never, it's usually like the little piecemeal here and there on certain items.
So a couple of weeks ago, there was sea bass on the menu.
Okay.
And it was more expensive than any meal I've ever that I can remember anyway
Okay.
at Woodland Pond, but it was wonderful.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it was expensive, and that's why
Sea
you
bass
charge.
is really expensive right now. Yeah. The fishes are getting up there in price.
So did lots of people order it even though it was expensive, or did you find that
We
Cost.
actually, I feel like our high-end items are probably about 30 to 40% of our purchases in the dining room. People that come to the dining room for the most part are open to spending the money on the nicer meats. Lamb chops, scallops, sea bass, I mean, that stuff is the most popular stuff that we have.
Dave?
Love to hear what's coming for Club, the expansions.
Okay. So what's your future plans for the pub?
Only alcohol. No. We have a coffee machine that is in transit. So hopefully we'll have some lattes and espressos going on there. The grill items should be coming out in the Chanticleer. I believe we're going to shoot for not this coming Monday, the following Monday. We're waiting for some great new culinary leaders in the kitchen to start so that we can provide a proper product there. So what's coming is grilled items. Breakfast sandwiches started today, the coffee stuff. And then once I get all that situated, I really want to try to find like a local wine and a local beer and have something and really do like an afternoon bar, if you will. And maybe not every day, maybe it's twice a week, but that's the next steps for the pub for me. And if anybody has ideas and you think I should be doing something different, and this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, not in the dining room, but if you want to call me and have any suggestions, please do so.
Annette?
I had somebody raise the question to me about, and said that the non-alcoholic beer or very low alcoholic beer had not been available for some time. Is that true? And, is that the way you want it?
Will there be will there be non-alcoholic beer available?
Apparently there hasn't been, I was told.
This is the first I'm hearing that we are out of stock on the non-alcoholic beer. I will go inside and place an
And
order.
I told her to write you. I mean, when somebody says.
Yeah.
something.
I will be more than happy to, we have tens of thousands of items in our kitchen. There's no excuse for me not to know that I don't have non-alcoholic beer, but if I don't have it and I am notified, I will absolutely place the order.
Well, my only concern was, I think it's important, and you have plenty of other non-alcoholic beverages, and it's important to have that.
Absolutely.
George?
Speaking about vegetarian meals, I don't know how many vegetarian meals you serve, but I find the quality goes up and down quite significantly, or the choices go up and down quite significantly. Can you speak to how you handle that particular issue, and including the issue of having meat substitutes like Impossible Meats, which you sometimes have, but then you go through a period of non-availability. So it is I'm sorry to be so confused here. There are the big swings in terms of the attractiveness of vegetarian options.
Please explain how you handle the planning for vegetarian options.
So I've been here 4.5 years, and the vegetarian population is definitely increasing more and more each year. We recently had a vegan that came on, moved in a couple months ago, and we decided we were going to make the vegetarian options vegan. I know that doesn't answer your question, but I'm just kind of telling you the life of the vegetarian. I do have a handful of people that would like to see the Impossible Meat, if you will, every time. But I also have had some people voice to me that they don't always want to have Impossible Meat. As an example, I had about 4 or 5 vegetarians say, can you eliminate the Impossible Meat out of the chili and just do a bean chili? So that is why, and again, when people ask me, I try to take it all into consideration. I have heard, George, that we are definitely on a roller coaster ride on our quality of vegetarian. And as soon as we get some new staff in here, it's not just going to be vegetarian, it's going to be across the board. It's not one type of meal over another that needs more focus than the other. But I have heard that we're kind of doing this little roller coaster on the vegetarian. Some days it's good, some days it's not. At the dining committee meeting earlier this week, we talked about possibly putting together a vegetarian task force and try to get some ideas from our vegetarian clientele as to what they'd like to see. And I'd be more than happy to put those items on the menu. So that's a little bit down the road, but as far as the cooking procedures, as soon as we get some more staff in here, we will be focusing on retraining and hopefully fixing some of those quality issues.
Well, we've well, let's take one more question and then we should probably tie it up because we've certainly extended this beyond half an hour. You may need to come back. I mean, food.
I can come
Food is
back.
important.
I can come back. We'll have drinks next time though, okay?
Betsy?
Please reiterate the importance of saying something right in the moment. If there's something wrong with your food and in the dining room, right then or there.
Yes, there's been a request for you to state one more time the importance of immediate feedback.
Yeah, it's important. As an example, if I'll just go back to chicken parm, and I always use this as my food, or we can talk about sweet potatoes. If you don't like the chicken parm that's on your plate, most likely everybody else in the dining room might not like the chicken parm that's on your plate, right? For whatever the reason is. So say it's overcooked, there's not enough sauce, the portion's too small. If you tell us, maybe I can go in the kitchen and I can fix it for you and everybody else, right? So yes, it's important. It's also, it's important, Betsy, to just tell us if you're unhappy with something so we can fix it. Last night, somebody mentioned that the green beans were a little tough. I went in the kitchen. I didn't think they were that tough, but I asked them to cook them a little bit longer and, we can fix it. So it is important.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience for coming.
Thank you,
It makes
guys.
it much nicer.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.